All right, welcome everybody. I'm just going to test to make sure everything is set up here and is working correctly. Just give me 1 second. You just double check. See, again, welcome to anybody here. Let me just double check to make sure this is working. Let me see. Audio is good. Let me see. All right, audio is good. All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to give just about 10 seconds and I'll go ahead and get started here. Hair's sticking out like crazy. Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just want to welcome everybody to the live stream here. Again, I'm trying to make this a custom where weekly I'm doing my market review and preview for everyone or anyone who wants to join, just to get caught up on what happened the previous week in the market, what we're looking forward to the upcoming week, and just kind of taking a look at the charts to see where we stand from a technical perspective. And to get started for this week, real fast, if you have questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat, or tickers that you want me to look at. I'll look at those for you. But this is going to be a pretty big week because we have big data. We have GDP that's going to be coming on Wednesday. We're getting PCE Thursday, which is going to be significant. Actually, I think it's Thursday's GDP, Friday's PCE. But then we also get the FMOC minutes on Wednesday. That's at 2 p.m. And then we're going to get NVDA earnings that comes at market close. So there's a lot that's scheduled out there that is going to drive the markets. And we have to be ready for it. We have to be prepared for it in terms of what's going to happen. And just to set the stage of what occurred last week, leading into the weekend. Again, we had a 3-day weekend. Markets closed today because of Memorial Day. But on Friday, Trump had tweeted out that he was recommending a 50% tariff on the EU, and that dropped markets pretty significantly. And really all last week was red. You had the Moody's credit downgrade last week at the start of the week, and we had a pretty much a sell-off. So that kind of set the stage leading into the weekend. But then today there was news that actually, I think last night there was news that the US and the EU had a phone call, that it was a good conversation, and you saw futures pop on that news. So the way we're looking now, when we pull up futures, you're going to see that they are up. So that could be a good indicator of what's potentially going to happen tomorrow and Wednesday, or at least what the early sentiment's going to be. It's going to be bullish with that news, and then we'll see how that carries through. So with things leaning bullish because of that, if we have a really good NVIDIA earnings, that move will be amplified. If we have really good GDP data that comes in, the move will be amplified. If we have really good PCE data that comes in, the move will be amplified. So that's where it's important to know what is happening, what's transpiring, what's happening real time, and that's really what we're looking for. And so let's just go and let's jump into trading view here. And I'm going to pull this up. I just want to make sure we're able to see this. So I pull this up on my phone so I could see that what I'm seeing, you guys are seeing, because I want to make sure that I'm not just here talking to myself. So give me a second. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm still getting used to the whole live stream process here. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So let me share screen. And window. Hold on. All right. Remember, I'm still a newbie when it comes to sharing my screen here for the YouTube live stream. So I will figure this out. Give me 1 second here. Let's see. Trading view. Let me see if I do the window. Window. All right. Live streaming. Entire screen. All right. Let me try to pull this over here. And now pull that. Now I should be able to do it. Window. Yeah, there we go. Now we're cooking. Yes. All right. We can see it's laggy. How about now? So Darrell, Nancy, I saw you say it's pretty laggy. Is everything working okay now? Just to run down the data here that I talked about at the outset. We could see, again, we're closed here on Monday, which is today. Happy Memorial Day. And just to go over the data, we have durable goods orders tomorrow at 8:30. That is going to move the markets a bit, so be ready for that. And just jumping down to Wednesday. Wednesday's the big day. And sure, FMOC minutes, but it's really more about NVIDIA and their report. Again, I may be doing a live stream on Wednesday for the presser that goes along with the earnings report. So stay tuned for that. But typically their results come around 4:05 p.m. Eastern time. And their conference call started about 5:30. So Wednesday's going to be a big day. And then we come into Thursday, again, GDP, we'll get GDP, and then Friday is PCE. So there's just so much in, oh yeah, we're also going to get personal income, personal spending month over month. So everything is it's stacked. It is a stacked week. If we take a look at futures right now, we can see just an idea of where we are. Again, futures were open yesterday as well, but you can see we are up at this time 61 points. It was higher. So if I drill down here into the 3-minute chart, we can see it was higher at one point in time at the close yesterday, but then it has been selling down a little bit, but still it's significantly higher than where it closed on Friday. So if we just zoom out here on the futures, we could see we are above Friday's candle. And in terms of its open out of here. Now, when we jump over to the SPX, which is what I like to look at, again, I have to update my lines here, but Bears had a nice week last week in terms of just driving the market down. Now, significant move down, and we were in need of a rest because if you just go back and look, following this low here on April 21st, it's just been straight up with really very little retest. And we finally got that pullback next week. And again, this is where we get into the power of the moving averages. If you look here, you could see drop. It found support at both the 100 and okay. And those are very significant moving averages that we need to pay attention to. And that's where it bounced. And so what we're looking for here this week is, all right, was this just a natural little retest here? And we're going to push out of this based on the data, based on NVIDIA earnings. And that can happen. And if you just zooming back and looking here to the left, we can see that all-time high up there around 61.4673. If the data is really good, if NVIDIA earnings are really good, if the sentiment's positive, we get some Trump tweets out there about deals, you could see a new all-time high being set this week. Again, I talked about in the preview video. So Darrell and Nancy say really bad lag and choppy. All right, let me try to switch my internet here. All right, I am back, guys. Let me just verify that you can hear me. I had to switch. I apologize for that, but the my internet connection was not working. So let me just verify that you guys can hear me. Let me test the chat. You can see I'm a rookie with the live streams. Yes. All right. Is everything less laggy? All right. Sweet. All right. All right. I'll eventually get this figured out here. All right. So I'll just start back over with everything because I want to make sure you guys didn't miss anything. Just give me 1 second here. Share. All right. Window. Bam. There we go. Okay. So now out here in nature. And let me get. There we go. Okay. So as I was saying, lots of data coming this week. What I'm looking at here is we had a nice sell-off last week. We retested into 200 and 100 daily simple moving averages, and that was a nice area of support. And just in looking to the left, keeping an eye on the all-time, because if there are so many, if we get good NVIDIA earnings, it has the potential highs and even push out of it. And so with the conversation between the EU and the US being positive, that's something that it could be a catalyst for this week, and good data could send us even further. And if you look at it too, there is still a lot of support below us to prevent us from dropping lower. And not to say that we can't, because if you have a news event, it'll shoot through these moving averages. And so we need to be mindful of that. But if it were to drop further, you have the 20 EMA here on the daily. You have the 50 SMA on the weekly here, which I'm going to have to update that. Move that up slightly. And you also have the 100, the 200, and the 50. So you have lots of support down here. But notice, if we do bounce out of here, which it looks like we're going to get a gap up tomorrow based on what's happening with futures, the only moving average above us right now is going to be that 10-day exponential moving average. So if it can clear that, it has room to run. So that's why this is such a pivotal week with all the big data that's coming out. And really, if you zoom out and look at this, what kind of pattern does this look like here? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. What kind of pattern does it look like is developing? Anybody have any guesses what that is? Anybody? So it's not a double top. This is actually going to be a head and shoulders. This is an inverted head and shoulders that we have building here, right? Here's your shoulder, here's your head, here's your shoulder, and inverted head and shoulders. What we're watching for is a break of the neckline, which really I'll just mark out 2 key areas to watch. If we start getting above that, ironically, it's near those all-time highs, that can send us up, okay? So keep an eye on that. Structurally and just from a technical perspective, we do have that pattern in place. And again, nothing in trading works all of the time, but that is pretty promising. And after getting a bit of a rest last week, that could be in store for us here on the SPX. Hopping over here to the Qs, we're probably going to see something very similar, as both of these indices have kind of mirrored each other. And you could see the same thing. You could see that head and shoulders pattern. Same thing. It broke down below that 10-day exponential moving average. And again, look at this glut of support down here. The 100, the 200, you have the 50 on the weekly. So it's going to take quite a bit in order to push down through that. Not to say that it can't, but you would almost need a news event or something to drop us through that. So looking again, very similar here on the Qs. Hopping over to IWM, again, similar kind of pattern here. We're seeing an inverted head and shoulders, and this one has been uh, lagging as well. It's about as laggy as the earlier live stream here, but it really hasn't had a nice move in quite some time. So this one could be due. And remember, your smaller cap stocks are interest rate sensitive because they do carry a lot of debt. And if you look at last summer, right here around the middle of May, it did have a little bit of a retest, but then it pushed up decently high into July. It got up to around 228. So possibly IWM could be setting up for a move. So you just want to keep an eye on that. Now, this one is going to have a little bit more, well, actually a lot more of resistance ahead of it for it to break through the 100 on the weekly, the 10, the 100, the 200, the 50 on the weekly. So this one could get moving, but it's got a lot that it's going to have to fight through in order for that to take place. If you look at the Dow Jones Industrial, again, very similar patterns across the board on all of the broader markets here. I'm just moving my moving averages up here. Give me 1 second. You see something very similar, head and shoulders. We had a double bottom form down here. Really, all the broader markets look the same over the past few months. But again, this one is going to follow suit with the IWM in terms of the resistance that's above it, because you have the weekly, 50, and the 100 and 200 dailies above it. And you also have the VRVP point of control that's going to act as a resistance. So this is going to have to fight through quite a bit in order to get a move. And take a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, I talked about last week. I liked this bull flag. I thought that it would make all-time highs, and it did. So this was a nice move that we got. You have a lot of people with $125,000 price targets on Bitcoin by the end of the year, and some analysts even higher. Some even have a $250,000 price target. This, I'm just going to mark this on here, end of year, 125. And so remember, Bitcoin can move pretty fast, and look how similar the structure is here. And this was after that big dump where it got into bear market territory, down 30%. And then I want to point this out: push, consolidation, big green pop, consolidation, big green pop, consolidation, big green pop. So we're probably going to get some sideways movement and then one nice push higher. I think we can hit that 125 by July. But Bitcoin has been taking a little bit of a rest. Really, you just have chop since we had that new all-time high, then a sell-off day there. Hopping over to the VIX just to take a look at the volatility that's in the markets. That did spike last week off of the Moody's news, off of the Trump tweet, because everybody said, sky's falling, tariffs. And so you did get that pop, but the 50 on the daily was a rejection point for that. And so really the volatility has been low in the markets. And what else? Treasury. So this did get a bit of a spike last week because of fear of an increase in the deficit because of the bill that was passed by the House for the tax cuts, etc. And so that increase in the deficit put some pressure on the bond market. That's why you saw the yields increase. And again, a higher yield means lower priced stocks, so downward pressure on stocks. So keep an eye on the 10-year in terms of what it's doing, because that's always going to have an impact on the equities. Okay, so I'll just pause there. Do you guys have any questions about the broader markets before we get into some individual tickers? No? All right. Well, I'm just going to keep rocking here, and I'm going to pull up NVDA on my chart, because this is really the big talking point for this week. I'm really excited about their earnings. And if you checked out the earnings preview that I did, You know that the last 3 times they've reported, they have had gap downs, and they're due for a nice move off of earnings. And just taking a look at where we are right now, we're kind of in the middle on the RSI, not overbought, not oversold. We had a nice retest of the 100 SMA on the weekly when we had the crash and the lows made on April 7th. What's funny too is this thing got down to $86, and everybody was like, there's no way I'm buying that. But then you look at it now and you see just how much it's ran since that point. But double bottom pattern that came into play there. And really what happened last week is we just kept selling down very, very slowly into the 10. And so what potentially could happen this week is if we do get a little bit more weakness here, there's just so much support below us. We have the 200 on the daily, we have the 50 on the weekly. I don't see it getting below these two moving averages if we were to go lower. I just don't see that. And especially with the news that we got about talks between the US and the EU, I think we probably open up with a gap up tomorrow on NVDA. And really, we do have a large volume though here on the VRVP that it's going to have to contend with and break through. And then just looking at where this selling pressure came in here on this upper wick, 137.52, keep an eye on that 137 area. And just coming back over here to the left, you could see those areas where it's been rejected before. These are the most recent highs, and it's made lower highs. So we want to see some of these recent lower highs get taken out and get closes above them. And if you watch my video, what I'm looking for is to see this 150 price get hit on earnings and to see it stick here. So I don't see a massive, crazy $40-$50 move. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think a bullish Tuesday and a bullish Wednesday going into earnings, get up into that 139, 140 area, and then pop up to 150, and it just kind of sticks there, and then we grind higher out of that on earnings. That's the bull case, and I'm bullish on NVIDIA this time around. If it were to drop out of here, again, there's so much support. But again, news events make moving averages really not that important. You can cut through them like a knife if the news is bad enough. And looking here, I have the worst case scenario being $112, but I have, if this drops down to 117.55, so I have it marked out here by this line. And basically, what I could see happening if things are negative in the earnings is that it does break through that 100, and it gives a look like it's going to fall further, but you do have buyers who will step in at that point and kind of hold it up. But this chart to me looks, again, it's not oversold. It recently was, but we did get some selling that came in. You do have these recent lower highs that it's made. It hasn't had a sustained strong bull move in quite some time, and it hasn't had a gap up on earnings since May of last year. So I think this one could be primed to move. And it'll take the entire market with it. It'll take the entire chip sector with it. And if it does blow it out of the water, you will see new all-time highs. So that's how important it is. Darrell and Nancy, yeah, it does look like a bit of a bull flag there, after this push up. Absolutely. And it almost like what it looked like on Bitcoin. So, it looks like there could be some opportunity here with NVIDIA. So definitely that's at the top of my list in terms of what I'm watching here. Again, if you guys have tickers you want me to look at, throw them in here. I'll probably go through about 5 or 6. Chart is very, very messy. Let me delete. Kind of the same thing here on Tesla, but will run Tesla NVIDIA time. So that's going to be interesting, but kind of a similar pattern here. Almost looks like a bull flag as well, retesting into the 10. This little volume node is interesting here, but I think Tesla's we're probably gonna wait on Tesla unless there's some goofy news that comes out, which typically tends to happen. Okay, BYD's EV sales in Europe surpassed Tesla for the first time. Um, we'll see if that's enough to drag it down. But Tesla could be due for a move too. It's above all of its moving averages. It did have, I think this was a 50% drop down to these lows. And then really too, if you look at where all the support came in, I think you had lots of buyers who stepped in here, and this may be the retest for a push higher. So we'll have the trade desk. Yes, let's take a look at it. TTD. All right. So I did a video on the trade desk, and Darrell and Nancy. We got a bull flag here too. And the thing that I really like about this chart is the fact that you have this huge gap up on earnings, a ton of volume that came in on it, right? But then since then, it's just been very, very methodically, very, very strategically coming down. And it hasn't been a significant drop. It's almost, what word can I use? It almost looks like it's strategic, this drop. So we have profit taking that's coming in here, but you also have buying. And so why this is stands out to me is because gap up, you have profit taking, but you also probably have some buyers coming in here. And I think this is setting up for its next move higher. You can see that we have the 100 here. We have the 200 here in terms of those moving averages. And so if it could break through that, you do have room up to 96 because I think that this 100 will get taken out with a gap up. And that could happen tomorrow morning. But I do like the trade desk. And then too, if you just look at where it dropped from its earnings in February, it was at 118. So there is that huge gap that needs filled. And it's probably going to take some time to do that because you could see after a gap down, it was a slow bleed. It just didn't go right there. But this one I do like, and I do think has potential and is setting up for a move. So keep an eye on the trade desk. Let's take a look at Coinbase, because Coinbase had a nice little trade here on Coinbase. Coinbase had a nice move. Really, this whole week was a nice move. Delete some of these lines here. And just kind of taking a look at what we had on Coinbase. This was beat up pretty badly since it hit those highs back in December. And again, inverted head and shoulders. It got a break above the 100 and the 200. And the news that came out here was being added to the S&P 500. And that's what caused this gap. But notice it's just kind of moving sideways. So there could be some upside movement still available here for Coinbase. And just pay attention to what happens on Bitcoin, because it will have moved sympathetically with Bitcoin. So there could be some more upside movement coming here on Coinbase. So I do like it. I'm watching it. In terms of its all-time high, I think that is way up in the 400s. Yeah, so it's up there around 429. So keep an eye on Coinbase. Again, I don't have an edge for it this week. I do think there's more upside potential. I just don't know how long that is going to take before that happens. If we take a look here at Google, this 100 on the daily, again, these moving averages are so important. Look at this. It pushed above it, but what happened? The sell right back down, and it did get below that 200. So this is the area where if you're a Google bull, you want to watch it and keep an eye on what it does here. So more than likely this comes down and retests into the 10, and then it'll try to. So the more that it tests it, you would think the weaker that resistance would become, and then the bulls would maybe be able to drive it higher. So we'll have to just monitor that one and see what it does. UNH, this we're excited about on that big massive drop, and then we got that dragonfly doji that came in here, and buyers still stepping in. You can see the volume decreasing. Again, I'm waiting for 188 is my price target to take this one long, because I'm being very, very cautious and patient with this. Need a little bit more negativity, a little bit more bad news, as if it hasn't had bad news already. But you would need that in order for this to drop lower. And again, this 188 mark, you might be asking, well, what's the significance with this? Well, that marks the COVID lows from March 2020. And after that, that's when it went on that huge, massive run that took it up to that $630 price point. And so if it would come all the way down there, I mean, that's just a massive drop, 70%, as if it's not a massive drop already. And really, it's not a bad time to take a shot on it now, as long as you're protecting your risk. I'm just being really cheap here with this play, and I'm waiting because there's other tickers that I want to own, and I don't have a strong desire to own this one. This is more of just a technical play. I would just like to get it down here. So we'll see if that happens. Again, if you guys have, all right, we have ARR. Let's take a look at ARR. Armor. So is this Armor Residential? Dale, I'm just checking. That's not really showing up on my ARR. I don't have an ARR. I have ARRY. All right, Covington. All right, let me see if I can look up Covington. I can't find an ARR Covington. Either. Hold on, Covington. Let's see. I got 2 contracts. What's the ticker symbol for Covington Telecommunications? If you can give me the ticker symbol, because I'm trying to search the name and it's not coming up. Covington. So I already went over in NVDA. If you watch the recording for this one, but yeah, I'm not seeing Covington in here, and I'm not seeing. Oh, you're trying to ask me about. Oh, I got you. Covington Telecommunications is your handle. Yeah. So I went over. It's okay. I went over NVIDIA at the start here. So if you watch the video, it'll have the replay of it on there. I don't want to go back through it for everybody else in the audience, but my price target on it on earnings is 150, and I have a full video that I did breaking down the earnings report. There's a bull flag that's shaping up right now. There's lots of support below it that would prevent a larger move down. It's gapped down in the last 3 earnings, so I am playing that to the upside right now. That's just me. But you can either check out the video of this live stream or go check out. You're welcome. Or go check out the video that I put together. It's pretty comprehensive. And sorry about that miscommunication. You have 2 contracts, one $130 strike June 20th. Those are good positions. Just remember that the IV crush that's going to come the day after earnings. So you may want to consider, if you're up significantly heading into that report before the market closes, maybe selling one of those contracts if you're up with a pretty good profit, and maybe then hold the other one just to protect yourself. So that just something that I would recommend there. All right, what I LTR. So Palantir. Let's go take a look at Palantir. Palantir. So this one's interesting. I mean, we're above all the moving averages. So for this one, for me, when I look at it, this is a stock that I wouldn't play, and it's because it's so far extended. It is up near all-time highs, but that doesn't mean that it can continue to run, because Palantir really here just pushed higher. So it's not to say that this, just to say that I'm going to wait a little bit. But it's a company that does have a lot of upside, but for me, when I'm looking for risk versus reward, the day trade, I just don't see this right now, because we're too far up close to that all-time high. And we are seeing there's lots of upper wicks that are coming in here. We are retesting into that 10, but you could argue that you do have a bit of a double top coming in, lower high, higher high, double top. But again, I wouldn't try to short this one either. So this is one where I'm just sitting on the sidelines and waiting. And it also wouldn't be something that I'm looking at saying, oh, I wouldn't mind buying some shares here to own long term, because for me, it's a bit too expensive. I would rather wait for some type of a pullback or a dip before I would go long here on Palantir. Would wait on this one. All right. All right. So I got a few more here. So we'll get these last four in, and then we're going to wrap up. Let's do CrowdStrike, CRWD. CRWD. All right, CrowdStrike. I think they just well, they're getting ready to report earnings. So we're creeping up on that all-time high here. You know, if we just look over here to the left, we hit this all-time high February 19th. We actually did break that all-time high. So let me just mark that out here. All right, so that 459.80, this did make a new all-time high. Again, I'm going to say the same thing here about CrowdStrike that I said about Palantir. Good company, great move. And in terms of what I do and how I approach my day trades or even my swing trades, I would wait on this one because it made a new all-time high. I'd wait for some profit taking to come in. And also, too, we were going to have earnings coming up here June 3rd, so next week. So I would just be sitting on the sidelines on this one. However, that doesn't mean to say that it can't keep pushing higher, because it definitely can. This looks pretty strong. For me, in terms of what I do, I'm going to wait and sit on the sidelines. I don't see play here. PNW, Palo Alto Networks. PNW, there we go. Let's take a look at the reported last week. Yep. So the cybersecurity stocks. So just marking out the all-time high here on PNW. We hit that the 19th. So that all-time high with the broader markets. And we did get a gap down here off its most recent earnings. That's a hammer candle, almost looks like a dragonfly doji, and it found support. Notice the buyer stepped in here at that 50 simple moving average on the daily. So we had buyers come in here at that 179.25 area. Interestingly enough, though, we do have an inside candle here. So I do like inside candle setups. Right. So we have this bullish candle from Friday inside of the wicks of the Thursday candle. So that indicates that there is some pressure building here. Could this thing pop back up and fill this gap? Quite possibly it could. And especially if there's strength in the markets off of PCE and off of NVDA earnings, you could see that gap get filled. And that does look like a bit of an inverted head and shoulders. So this one might not be a bad one worth monitoring this week just to see what it does, because it could get a push. The only thing I would say on this one, just from my experience, I don't like to, especially if we've already made a little bit of a bounce, I don't like to go after things on day trades that have gapped down, because I like to give them some time for the move to settle out and play out. Because I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this. It comes up into that 10 and then drops back down and finds a little bit more support before it then makes a move. But you do have an inside candle. That typically means that a move is coming, and you do have a gap that needs to get filled there on Palo Alto. Avgo, AVGO, Broadcom, AVGO. Let's take a look at AVGO. All right. So I missed a really big trade on this one. So I haven't looked at this chart in a while. So this one's frustrating for me to look at. So taking a look here at Avgo, let me pull up my lines. So we have earnings coming June 5th. So that's not until next week. But same thing, inverted head and shoulders here. You do have a nice little retest back into this 10. And we have made lower highs. So after the all-time high in December, we had a lower high here in January, and we have a lower high here. So we're looking to break the string of lower highs, and it does look poised to do it. And again, if NVIDIA pops, it's going to take all chips with it. Avgo would be, it's above that 10. I would I'm going to trend line here, resistance off of these lower highs. And I would just be watching when it comes up into this area. How does it interact? And I'd be looking for a strong close above this, and then it could really start doing some damage and making a push here. We'll see. It also has earnings coming up too next week. Is it next week? Yeah, next week. So that's one worth monitoring for sure. UNH, so already went over UNH. So leak call options on PanW or leak options, Darrell, I'm going to come back to you here in a second because I just saw these ones. Leap call options on PanW or leap call options on Avgo. I mean, you could. It just depends on what your risk appetite is, what you're looking to do. I think both look a little out of the two. Avgo is probably the better company fundamentally. In terms of cybersecurity, that's a market that's going to grow. So if you're going to get leaps, it depends on how far you're going out. You just have to keep in mind with options, even though they are leaps, they're going to carry some significant risk with them, especially if you have a move against your bullish direction. So, like I said, Avgo, I like better fundamentally from a chart perspective with that gap down on PanW. I would give it some time to kind of settle out. But again, you would have to make the decision there. I think Avgo is the better company, in my opinion. And then Darrell Nancy said, fairly new trading, sitting mostly on cash. Everything seems close to all-time highs. Scares me to push many chips in. So that's been my approach. I don't trust things right now. And just let me come back over here to the SPX. Yeah, we get a nice 21% drop, and that put us into bear territory. We're now back into bull territory because we got a 20% move off of those lows. But to me, there's too much volatility and uncertainty out there to just go all in yet. I'm waiting. I'm not ready to really go large on swing trades until we get just more clarity and certainty around economic policy. What's going to happen with the Fed in terms of rate cuts? What's going to happen with these tariffs? What's the impact on businesses in terms of tariffs? In terms of their earnings, I want to wait for that. And so I've just been day trading. And until I see more clarity and certainty, that's what I'm going to do. So I've been saying that for a while. And as long as that, until that's done, I'm not really confident on swing trades. However, I will say something like a UNH that is almost dirt cheap right now. It's getting close to the point where I'm ready to take a shot on that because healthcare can move in a recessionary period. But hey, if you have money sitting on the sidelines, that's not a bad place to be, especially if we get a drop like something that Jem Carson's talking about, like a 30 to 40% decline. So, that's just how I'm playing it. So, but I do think there's upside for NVIDIA this week, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But that's what I'm looking for. All right. And then do you think it will be a green week? I do think a green week this week. We just have to see what the PCE should come in cooler than anticipated. GDP, I'm not so sure about if we're going to see contraction in the economy. If there was contraction, that will cause things to go down. And then you have NVIDIA earnings. What's interesting is you have NVIDIA earnings Wednesday, and then you have GDP at 8:30 a.m. the next day. So these things are set up like they're smushed together. So, and plus we weren't open today, so you're going to see all the moves just pushed into 4 days. So get ready for some fireworks. But I think the way things are shaping up, as long as the data comes in good, and I think NVIDIA is going to report well, I think there's a strong chance we make all-time highs this week in the broader markets. And then we get some crazy news a few weeks later, and then we start to drop back down. So you day trade UNH twice. Yeah, it got a nice bounce, from those lows that it made. So All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for the live stream. Sorry about the technical difficulties there at the start. Again, I'm just getting used to that. I'll be doing more of those here. I'll be doing them weekly, and I'll get the internet straightened out. But I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you have a great week in the markets. Check out this channel, subscribe, leave a comment, like, share it with your family and friends. It helps me grow this thing, and I just appreciate sharing this with all of you out there who enjoy the market. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, everyone.